Hello, my little online collaborators. Today we're going to talk about what life was like when your parents went to school. To begin, let's look at some pictures of some things your parents used when they were your age. Can anyone tell me what this is? That's right, class. That's what school actually looked like when your parents were young. Things like video conferencing and online learning were brand new, and schools that used them were way ahead of the curve. And when they wanted to learn something, they had to go to a special building where they would meet with others. Here's an example. Does anyone know what this is called? That's right. It's a university. Now I'm going to show you some very specialized tools. Does anyone know what this is? It was actually called a desktop computer. You can see why. That thing is as big as a desk. And to input information into the computer, they needed an extra tool called a keyboard. Once the information was in their computer, they had to have a place to store it, so they used things like this. The problem was that you could only access it from one place, so they had to try to invent mobile technologies, which led them to CDs, DVDs, and flash drives, which allowed them to carry their information with them from place to place. What's that, Johnny? Yes, you're right. If they lost that storage device, then they lost all their information, too. Another thing they used to do was to print things onto paper. Imagine that. If you thought CDs and DVDs were fragile, imagine what it must have been like trusting your intellectual property to something as flimsy as paper. And then, if you needed to share a lot of information, they would bind lots of paper into things called books. Do any of you have some of these books at home? When your parents were little, even before desktop computers, they had things called telephones. Can you imagine? The only thing they did was carry one person's voice to another person's location. That's it. What a waste of currency. And speaking of currency, there used to be these things called banks. They were places where your mommy and daddy would go to get currency. But there was a problem. They didn't have access to their currency 24/7 like we do, and that was frustrating. So the banks created something called ATMs. They were machines that were on the outsides of the banks, and your parents could get currency anytime they wanted. They called that currency cash, but imagine, boys and girls, they would carry that cash around in their pockets where it could get lost or stolen. So eventually, they were very happy to have a thing called credit cards. It was kind of like having an electronic account, but you still had to keep the credit card with you at all times. Well, it looks like we're running out of time today, but I want to leave you with these two images. They are machines that were used frequently when your parents were young. Take a look. Try to guess what they were used for. Then I would like for you to show the images to your parents. Ask them if they can tell you what they remember about these machines, and discuss whether or not our current technology is better or worse than what they had 10 years ago. Make sure to come up with arguments both pro and con, as tomorrow we will debate it online. See you tomorrow, boys and girls.